One day, Thomas was at the junction with Annie and Clarabelle when he spotted a group of older boys all standing together. The boys had a roll of paper in their hands, which they lit. Then they put the other end in their mouth. Then they blew out smoke out their mouths, just like an engine out the funnel. Thomas wanted to say something, but before he could, the guard blew his whistle, and Thomas puffed away. As Thomas puffed along his branch line, he told his driver about the boys and what they were doing. He asked his driver what it was that they could possibly have been doing. "Sounds like they were doing drugs," said his driver in a serious tone. "Drugs are very illegal and dangerous," explained his driver. "Next time you see them, Thomas, you say something." Next morning, Thomas was back at the junction when he thought he could feel something moving inside his cab. "Driver?" he asked. This alerted his crew. Suddenly, they saw 3 older boys running across the tracks. His crew tried chasing them, but they were soon over the fence, and they could not catch them. "Sorry, Thomas," said his crew. "We'll catch those rascals next time," said the fireman. The guard blew his whistle, and Thomas puffed away. But he didn't feel much like Thomas. He began to feel very paranoid, like somebody was watching him. Then he began to shake uncontrollably. Then suddenly, he began to feel as though he were flying. He knew something hit his firebox, but he couldn't quite put his buffer on it. His vision began to shift and morph. Then, up ahead, on the line ahead, Thomas could have sworn he saw some derailed trucks. Thomas braked hard to avoid them. He closed his eyes and waited for the impact. But nothing happened. Thomas opened his eyes to realize that there was nothing on the line in front of him. "What's the matter with you, Thomas?" demanded his driver. "I don't know," wailed Thomas. "Please don't yell at me." The passengers all got out and began yelling at Thomas, which made him start to cry, and that silenced them. It was then that the driver and fireman noticed the really odd odor coming from Thomas's firebox. It was then that a policeman in the crowd said ominously, "Hello, hello, hello. Is that marijuana that I smell?" They searched, and Thomas. It was then that they found a burnt, rolled-up piece of paper in Thomas's firebox. Those boys must have dropped it when they When they went inside your cab, Thomas. Thomas was put in a siding, and Percy came to collect Annie and Clarabelle. Sir Topham Hatt spoke to Thomas. Well, Thomas, what have you got to say for yourself? Am I going to be arrested, sir? Sobbed Thomas. Sir Topham Hatt laughed. No, Thomas. Seeing as you did not take drugs on purpose, you will not be arrested. You were a victim of carelessness, and I will see to it that those boys get the punishment they deserve from the police and their fathers. And you, Thomas, shall have a wash down, and that'll make you feel better. Oh, thank you, sir, smiled Thomas. Already he was beginning to feel a little bit better, and he hoped that no one would ever have to go through the effects of substance abuse like he had.